This is an introduction on how to use blocks within AutoCAD. So I've got a file here with a series of schematic components, and I want to make blocks out of these. I'm actually going to use these in other drawings. Now right now these are all just individual geometrical entities created with lines and circles and filled areas. There's nothing that's a block on here right now, but I am going to want to make these into blocks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make these entities into blocks within this particular drawing. So you can type B for block, and the first one I'm going to just call switch. I'm going to specify its point on screen. I'm going to pick the center of this as the insertion point. You want to make sure you're using your snaps there. Now the objects, I don't have any objects selected yet, and it's telling me that. So I do want to pick some objects, and I'm going to pick that as the block. And notice it comes up with a little preview here of what the block looks like. I'm going to select that I want those blocks, those objects to turn into blocks after I've done this. And then I'm going to hit OK. Now notice I have Open in Block Editor and selected as well. So now it opens in this slightly different looking screen. It's the block editor. You can tell that because the background is a different color and because the block editor tab is selected. So I can edit this block however I'd like, and we'll talk about some more advanced block editing techniques later, but for now the thing I want to show is how to add attributes. Many blocks will have attributes associated with them, and in this exercise these switches should have names as well. So I'm going to click Attribute Definition. You could also type @def into the command line. And I'm first going to enter the tag name. The tag is like the variable for this block, so it's what this particular variable is called, and you can assign lots and lots of tags to blocks. But for this one, I'm going to call it just number. And so that's the variable. And for the prompt, I'm going to enter, please enter the switch number. The default is going to be SW $. I'm going to leave the justification and the text style alone. The height, I've already gone through and looked at the size of these objects. I do want it to be, I can select it to be annotative or non-annotative. For now, I'm just going to leave it annotative. And I'm going to have the height as 0.11. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to place that where I'd like it. Now notice right now it just has this placeholder. This is the variable name because I'm still in the block editor. I'm going to say close the block editor. And anytime I close the block editor, if I've made changes, AutoCAD will ask if I want to save or revert. I'm going to save those changes. Now one important thing to notice is that that's not yet done here to this switch because this switch was the first instance. But if I go to insert a block and I pick that switch, notice that now that is an option here. And I can select it, and then I can enter the switch number, so switch 1. And there we go, now switch number 1 is right there. And this is really handy if you're using components like these over and over in a drawing. Now, really quickly, I want to show you, I'm going to open a new drawing here. I'm going to insert a block, and what I want to point out is in this current drawing there's no switch block. But if I come over here, I go to insert, in the current drawing there is a switch block. When you create a block, just as the block command, what I did just a second ago, that only creates that block for that drawing. So that's the only place it's available in that drawing. If I want it to be available in other drawings, then I need to use a different command. So for that, I'm going to type wblock. And since I've already created this as a block, I can just say I want it to be this block. That's the one I'm using. Okay, I'm going to save it as switch.dwg, and I already have a folder for schematic blocks inside of my project 1. I'm going to hit OK. Now if I come over here and I click on Insert, I can select blocks from other drawings. Now this window is going to look a little different depending on whether you're using what version of AutoCAD you're using, but the concept is the same. You're going to navigate to where you've saved that block and you're going to hit OK. Now notice nothing's happened in the drawing yet. There's no blocks here. If I want to put it in, I have to double click on it, and now I can insert this switch into the drawing, and it's going to ask me for the switch number. So now that's switch 1. I could once again insert it. It's again ask me for the switch number, and this becomes a lot faster than, for example, drawing that switch over and over because I have it saved as a block. Since it's a W block, I can pull it into any drawing that I want. And now that it's in this drawing, it's saved here locally in this drawing. So I'm going to do that for these other blocks. I'm going to give them all names, and I'm going to save them externally as blocks with the tag attributes that are associated with them. Not all of them have attributes associated. You just need to look at the assignment to figure out which ones do and which ones don't. At this point in time, I've made the majority of these symbols into blocks, and you can tell they're blocks because when I roll over them, you'll see the whole thing highlight. It'll also say block reference. Also, you can click on it and see the insertion point highlighted as a grip. So that's a block, that's a block, I've made this a block. If you're wondering why the text is showing up on this one, in the assignment, that one only has, this particular block only has one value for it. So I just added that as text rather than as an attribute. But some of these others, like this switch and this delta, they do have attributes assigned with them. Now I haven't done 2 of them because I kind of want to show you a couple tricks. I haven't done this fused disconnect, and I haven't done this block here. So let's go ahead and create those as blocks. So I'm going to hit enter B for block, and I'm going to call this CS block. I'm going to pick the base point, and in this case, in all cases, you want to pick the base point based on how you're going to insert it. In this case, we're dealing with an electrical schematic, so it makes the most sense to pick a base point that is going to be where wires will connect. So here, that's this midpoint right here. I'm going to pick something on screen, and I'm going to open it in Block Editor. I do want the object converted to a block in this particular instance. Now in Block Editor, it's pretty simple, but I want to add an attribute definition. And in this case, I'm going to type CS number as my variable. So I'm going to type, please enter the component number. I'll probably get rid of the word the. And then the default is CS number sign. I'm going to change my justification to middle center, and the text height is fine. I'm going to say OK. Now it's going to ask me where I want the text. Now notice that right now my grip is on the left lower corner of the text. Don't worry about that too much. I have picked middle center as my insertion point, so that's where it will go. I've got my snap tracking on, as well as my object snap. So I'm going to roll over the middle point, roll over the middle point to grab those 2 points. And then I'm going to drag it down to where I get the intersection of those 2 points and click. And notice when I click, it automatically snaps to that center. Now I'm going to close my block editor. and I do want to save the changes. So now I've got that block ready to go. It's a block even though the tag number isn't showing up right here. Everything's fine. And then for this last block, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. So it's a fuse switch. I'm going to I don't need to change this because the base point for that one can be 0, 0, 0 since that's the one I put on the origin. I could, of course, click pick point again and then go select the center of this left circle, but I don't need to do that. I'm going to pick the objects on the screen and I am going to edit this. Now for this one, I want to add another attribute definition. And I'm going to enter switch number. Now I am using underscores here. You cannot have spaces in the tag name. Remember, this is a variable name, so it cannot have a space in it. You can have a space in the prompt. The prompt is just going to enter, is just going to be what AutoCAD asks you to enter when you put in the symbol. So I'm going to type into the switch number, and I'm actually just going to leave this as XXX because this will be changed based on what we're doing, and I'm going to hit OK. I've got the justification on left. I'm going to grab this point here in the center and I'm going to drag it up just to make sure it stays above that insertion point. And then I can close the block editor and saved. So now I have all of these saved as blocks. Now right now these are all available. If I look at my blocks, all of these are available in this drawing, but because I've just created them as blocks, they're not available in other drawings. So if I click here, I don't have, the only one I have available right now is that switch because I already brought that switch in. So if I want these to be available as blocks, I need to save them as wblocks. Wblock stands for right block, and this will create blocks that I can use outside of this drawing. In this case, since I've already created all these as blocks, I can just pick from this list. So let's just do them in alphabetical order. I'm going to select connection point here, and the name's already right, and I've already got it saved in the location where I want it, so I can hit save. I do suggest that you create a folder, something like this, for this assignment. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm just going to continue doing that. Wblock, I'm going to pick the CS block, I'm going to hit OK. I've already saved that. I'm going to replace it. Here I'm just hitting enter so I can repeat the previous command. And I'm going in an alphabetical order here. Yep, I already did that one. Okay, now I've saved all of these blocks into a new folder. And in my drawing here, now I can insert them all. So let's go through and insert those blocks. I can select blocks from other drawings. That pulls up this block window and I can hit these three dots. If you navigate to the folder where you've saved those blocks, you will see that they're all there. Now remember, just because you select a block doesn't mean that it's going to go into the drawing. You then have to place it. And this one's going to ask me for the CS number. Okay. And then I can just continue to do that. And I'm just going to enter some values in here. Now, after you've got all those inserted in the drawing, then you can just very easily grab them from up here, because I've already used them once in the drawing. And I can change the names from here. And then we could just draw wires going from point to point here, connecting these various components. So that's the basics of creating these blocks and inserting them. Of course, you need to arrange them in the appropriate way in the drawing, but these blocks, they can be rotated, they can be moved, however you please. And you can work with that.